Hello everybody, welcome to Nostalgia Goggles. I'm Chris, also known as your gaming nerd, and I was a pretty big fan of the Assassin's Creed series. Like, super obsessed. Like, got the game every year when it came out obsessed. So with that being said, revisiting it is kind of, well, interesting. I haven't gone back to Assassin's Creed 2 in such a long time. I'm not reviewing the first one, I'm reviewing the second one. And that's because I have more fond memories of that one. I will eventually loop around and go back to 1. I don't know when I'm going to, but I'm just not in the mood to go through Altair's time. So instead, let's go back to the game that I absolutely loved the whole franchise for, and that is Assassin's Creed 2. No, I don't have the physical game anymore. I bought it digitally, and I'm not going back.
Assassin's Creed story is complicated. Especially since I'm not reviewing Assassin's Creed 1, I'm kind of just jumping, so there's a lot that isn't gonna make sense. So let me try to explain it the best I can. You play as a man named Desmond Miles, who is playing as a man named Ezio Auditore, which is your ancestor, but he's not your first ancestor, he is your second time going through this, because Desmond has gone through this before through a machine named the Animus, and realistically, you don't really care about Desmond's story, nor do I, and his story isn't really that important in this game either. The story that is important is Ezio Auditore da Firenze. Ezio's story is a story of revenge, because you find out that your family is betrayed, and your family gets, at least the males in your family, get assassinated. You save them and eventually find out that they were killed via conspiracy, and it is your job to save Italy. That's the game. There's more to it, obviously, but I feel like that's the best way to describe it without getting way too into it. And all in all, the story is really, really, really good. I think the thing that makes this game as good as it is definitely the characters of this game, such as Ezio, Leonardo, Mario, and so on and so forth, characters that are all near the beginning. There's more, but I feel like all the things that make the story really good is the way that it presents itself as a story. And it makes it very engaging, especially since it's a revenge story, and it also blends together history and fantasy in a very interesting way, especially since it does take place in Italy. And I think that that's where we talk more about presentation, but all in all, this game just does a great job at what it does, and it also feels just good to play the whole story. I like it. With that being said, let's move on to the gameplay. The gameplay of Assassin's Creed, or the philosophy behind it, which is assassination alongside free running, or parkour, or whatever you want to call it, is timeless. And I think that Assassin's Creed, as long as you continue to build upon this idea of gameplay, can be done constantly. And I think that that may be the problem with Assassin's Creed in the future. I don't know, I'm kind of talking at my ass here, but when it comes down to the mechanics, the blind mechanics of this game, it works out very well. There are multiple ways for you to assassinate people, such as poisons, hidden blades, daggers, a wrist-mounted gun, a sword, and so on and so forth, and all of that works out very well, and it's very fun. I feel like when it comes to the sword combat, though, you can kind of just parry your way through it. You can't, but I feel like that's kind of the best way to do it and play it safe, but even then, I feel like the combat is kind of frowned upon. Even though it does force it upon you on multiple segments, I feel like the combat isn't the thing. That's what makes this game great. What makes it great is the free running and the whole stealth kind of style of this game. There's more to it, mind you, than that. There's mini segments of vehicles and some weird vehicles you'll see on the screen. But when it gets right down to it, I feel like the gameplay itself, or the idea, is solid. Now, the execution in this one is, really good, but I feel like it could be touched upon a little bit better. I think one of my biggest issues I've had with it is either the joke that everyone says Ezio launches himself off of like a wall, and I don't know if I can have footage of that. I haven't done it much in this game, but I can probably find it. And then there's also, my biggest problem is enclosed spaces. Ezio just doesn't really seem to know what to do, nor do the controls seem to know what to do within these closed spaces. I've had a lot of hiccups or mess ups where I really just shouldn't have, because the game's controls don't really foresee you doing a specific thing. This happens a few times throughout the quick platforming segments that they ask you to do. Another thing that's also interesting about this game and the gameplay that I feel like I should note is collect everything in your beginning of the run. The codex pages, the assassin tablet trinket thingies, collect those as you can. They aren't hard to collect, but they're easy to forget, especially since the narrative kind of sweeps you up. But I feel like it's something that I recommend doing and saying. I was originally going to complain about the assassin's challenges when it comes to the climbing, but they actually are a lot more forgiving than I remember them being, and they could have been a lot worse. But I feel like all in all, the game is solid, and the gameplay is solid, but that's also because the concept of what I've said before is solid, and I think that this game is still worth playing today, and it still works out very well. Not perfect, but that's what the later games are for, hopefully. With that being said, let's move on to presentation. So all in all, the presentation of Assassin's Creed 2 is pretty damn good. Especially since this game came out in 2009, this game looks pretty damn good, especially when it comes down to the cities. Now, when it gets right down to it, I feel like the character models are good. I feel like somebody that's younger would scoff at the character models today, but I think that they work their job very well. If anything, I think the character models that I have the most problem with are the modern day characters, and they just feel weird. I don't know why. They don't feel like they're real people. I don't know what's up with that. But all in all, the presentation of this game is very, very solid. When it comes down to another point of presentation that I want to bring up is there is the Assassin's Creed music, and it's really good. I think the theme song of Assassin's Creed is iconic, and I think that it's here where I've noticed it the most, and I really enjoy it. I think that the music isn't something to write home about. It feels very cinematic, and I think that that works out very well. But I think all the presentation's fine. I think one of the things that I forgot to talk about in gameplay is that when it comes to assassinations, it looks good, it looks fun, everything looks fine, and everything just works out well in the presentation. There's not really much to be said. With that being said, none of this matters if you can't get your hands on the game. So let's talk about the accessibility. So Assassin's Creed 2 came out on multiple consoles, so Assassin's Creed 2 isn't gonna set you back a lot. For the Xbox 360 and PS3, it'll set you back about $9 to $10. More than that, obviously. I think at the most you'll pay $20. Outside of its original release, there was the Ezio Trilogy, which was released on the PS3 and I believe Xbox 360. That will set you back $9 to $11, and you can get it for even cheaper than that. And last but not least, there's the Ezio Collection, which will set you back about $20, and it is on most modern consoles. All in all, this game is very accessible, and if I had to recommend a way to play it, it's obviously the modern consoles, because you could easily play it and it works out very well. Yeah, no, that's it. I think all in all, the best way to play this game is through the Ezio Collection. It has more than just the game itself. It has 2 of the movies and also just shorts, 2 of the shorts, and it's just, I don't know, it's just nice to have all the game on a modern console. With that being said, let's move on to the goods and the bads. The game's solid. The game all in all is solid. Everything about this game works out very well. Yes, it has some minor gameplay issues, but I think almost everything about this game just works. The story is really good, the gameplay is really solid. Once again, needs a little bit of tweaking, but it's good. The game's great. I don't really have much to say about the game that I didn't already say in gameplay and presentation. So, with that being said, let's move on to the bads. This game needs tweaking. I'm not saying that it's bad or anything, and I don't even think it's 100% notable, but I do think it is fair to bring up the fact that it isn't perfect, and I've already said my issues before throughout the episode, which are the fact that the game has some issues with free running, but even then, if you're careful with it, I feel like it's something that's not 100% noticeable, but there are times where Ezio will launch himself off of a building if you do something incorrectly, but even then that comes to you just over speeding through it. At least that's what that was my issue. So all in all, the climbing and free running isn't perfect to me, but it's not a big enough issue. It's just one that I think is fair to be talked about. With that being said, let's move on to the final thoughts.
So with that being said, is Assassin's Creed 2 worth playing? Yeah, actually, it's worth playing a lot more than I thought it was. The game looks better than I remember it being, probably because it got upscaled. I don't know how it works. I didn't look into that. I just know what I know. But the game looks better, it plays better, and realistically it's better than I thought it was going to be. Look, some games don't hold up the way you think they would, and this one, honestly, it does. I honestly thought this would be more of like a launch fest, and that might just be because I'm older and I'm way more patient with this franchise. Back in the time, I don't think I was super patient with it. I just think I wanted the action now and so many other things, but outside of that, this game just works out. I like it a lot, and it still holds up, and it's great. With that being said, what's your favorite Assassin's Creed game? I'm curious. I'm going to move forward, by the way. Brotherhood is next. I'm not going back to 1 until I feel like the modern series is over, so like, you know, I'll come back to one, but I'll come back to one before we get into like Odyssey, right? Is that fair? Yeah. So with that being said, I'll see you guys next time here on Nostalgia Goggles. Bye!